So I guess the studio, let's get that out of the way because it's a little bit more boring. We both have M1 Max MacBook Pros now. And the studio, like we had talked about before, really doesn't get you anything. I guess it's sort of convenient because you have a stationary little box here. It's got some ports on the front, some good I/O on the back. But if you already have a MacBook Pro and you pair it with like a CalDigit Thunderbolt dock, which is a couple $100, you're set. You basically can Frankenstein your own Mac Studio. There really isn't anything you're going to get. Though I will say now that this is an option, if I was to do it all over again, I'm sure, Matt, well, I don't know, Matt, if you were to do it all over again and you started from zero, would you go MacBook Pro or would you go Mac Studio? And I guess to that point, I forgot what the spec of this MacBook Pro was, but let's just say because the Mac Studio is different, would you use, let's say, that extra budget that you would have spent on a spec'd out MacBook Pro to upgrade any parts of the studio if you were going to do this all over again and if you were to buy a Mac Studio instead of a MacBook Pro?
Yeah, it's a good point because the MacBook Pros that we have are around $4,000, if not like $3,500. Like they're pretty close to the M1 Ultra price of the Mac Studio. What I would actually do, going back in time, both of these products are available at the time of purchase. I would actually probably get, now I'm thinking about this on the spot. Initially, my thought is to say I would get the same kind of base model M1, or sorry. Every single week we're going to have a segment where we try to say all these names at the same time and then it just never comes out right because they're just so confusing. The Mac Studio with the M1 Pro, or sorry, M1 Max, there we go again, not the Ultra, I'd probably get that model still and use the kind of extra money I have to get either a, fully spec'd MacBook Air, probably not, or a base model M1 Pro MacBook Pro, because then you're getting the best of both worlds for a similar price to an M1 Ultra Mac Studio.
Oh, that's a good point, actually.
Because then you get the best of both worlds. And when I'm on the go, like, do I really need to be doing all of that power? Do I need to have all that? The M1 Pro is still excellent. And I definitely could get by with that. And you're getting the M1 or the mini LED display. You're getting the great keyboard. You're getting the portability, all the great battery life. And then when you're at home, you have that base station, which, in that scenario, you actually still do have more power because you have the Max instead of the Pro. That's my initial thinking. Yeah, but I also haven't really tried the Ultra, so I could be swayed. But honestly, like the specs and the, performance upgrades that everyone's shown with the M1 Ultra, it while very impressive and it does seem to be about twice as fast, it doesn't really seem like it unlocks more of what we could do, at least for our workflows. I don't know. Do you agree with that from like what you've seen?
Yeah, well, so a couple of things. First off, I have yet to see a compelling case for M1 Ultra. I think The Verge's review said it best. They said everyone who used sort of Apple Silicon was blown away by the power of these chips, and the M1 Max is amazing. The M1 Ultimate, the M1 Ultra, while it's nice, it's not. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? It's nice, but not necessary. I think that, making that jump from Intel to Apple Silicon, especially the M1 Max, you really hit your stride there and you're going to notice some huge differences. But with the M1 Ultra, it's not so much. It's more nice to have, but not necessary. I've also seen sort of in the stuff I've seen that it's not always double the performance. Like You're maybe going to get things a little bit faster, but not that much, especially like in Final Cut. My question is, if I could actually test an Ultra, is how much faster could I really export a video? The same video that I have on my M1 Max with the M1 Ultra is 15, 20, 30 seconds faster? Because at that point, there's really, what's the point of that $2,000? Because the difference between M1 Max and the high-end Intel chips was so big. That was like, we're talking 5-10 minutes, if not more sometimes with project exports. That's a huge deal compared to, seconds or maybe a minute. That's not so much. So I was thinking, actually, if I was to go back, okay, let's say I get the base M1 Max Studio. I was thinking originally, I guess I could, maybe bump from 32 to 64 gigs of RAM and maybe do some adjustments there. But I like your plan a lot better, which is to buy the base one for, which I will say at the education store, I think is $17.99, which is a really good deal. And then use the difference there. I mean, I was looking, you can buy the 14-inch is probably a little too out of spec. That's another $2,000. So for $4,000, you could really have a really nice 14-inch MacBook Pro and a Mac Studio. But if I go back here, the base MacBook Pro, just the M1 MacBook Pro, that's $1,300. So for $2,000 plus $1,300, for $3,300, you're still significantly less than the M1 Ultra.
All right,
and
hold on.
You've got
I gotta
two
stop
Macs.
you here. I gotta stop you
go
here.
ahead.
You're telling me you're not gonna spend the extra $700 to not get that crappy MacBook Pro?
Oh, no, I would. Yes. Well, I'm just saying here, hold on a second. The base MacBook Pro,
The
1,300
14-inch, the base is $2,000.
$2,000.
So it's $700
$600.
difference.
$600,
yeah.
whatever it is. Yes, I would definitely do that.
I think that's worth it. The screen, the keyboard, the ports. I think it's worth it.
So I guess there's a good choice there. You could either have the M1 Ultra Mac Studio or the way better value, get the base Mac Studio and a base 14-inch MacBook Pro. Like you said, Matt, you sort of have a great laptop that's still plenty powerful with that M1 Pro, really nice keyboard, mini LED display, all that stuff, ProMotion too. And then you get home, you can dock with your M1 Max. That's the dream right there. I keep thinking that's what I want. I want a powerful desktop computer and then just a laptop with, give me a little bit of power, like in case I want to edit, but really just like a nice, versatile laptop that is not meant to be my editing machine or the main editing machine, but just something that sort of supports my video workflow lifestyle as I go.
Right.
That's
like
the
if I
dream.
need
So
to,
that's super
I
cool.
can do whatever I need on the computer, but I'm not planning to spend all day on this computer.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
So-
there is one thing that we're kind of leaving out of this whole equation, though, and
Yes.
that's that the Mac Studio still needs the entire, sorry, I hit the mic there, needs the entire everything else to go along with it,
That's
which
true.
obviously adds some cost.
Well, I guess, and this is, I guess, a good question. Do you think people who buy the MacBook Pro, well, I guess it depends on the user. Do you think those who buy the MacBook Pro really only use the laptop, or do you think, because I assume many people out there, not everybody, but many do have a keyboard, mouse, and a display of some kind to use with their MacBook Pro if they're really doing video editing, stuff like that, because most people, I feel like, have some sort of desk setup, right?
I like to think so, but also I've been so surprised by like what people do with their setups that I would not be surprised if it's closer to like 50-50. Some people do, some people don't. Yeah, I don't know. I would like to think that they do just because it's such a better experience, but also, I mean, the computers are good, and I see a lot of people buying 16-inch computers for a reason. So
That's true.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if people just do it all on the laptop.
Hey, you! Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Apple Circle podcast. If you want to check out the full episode, hit one of those videos right here, and also hit the other surprise video to see a surprise clip from the Apple Circle podcast. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and subscribe to the Apple Circle audio feeds and on all your favorite podcast platforms linked down below. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the main Apple Circle YouTube channel linked right down below.